but that's fun. So let's go back to the website. I'm going to pull it up again. And there's a section here on the website which says discover and collect. And David, maybe you could carry on and quickly explain to us what the section is about. And
But one of the things that which leads on from what I was saying was that this independent voice that we want to be. Right. One of the things that's often been the case is that people want to know from, I hate the word expert, but let's go on using it for the moment, from an expert. What do you think of such and such broke, such and such bracelet, such and such ruby, and so on and so on. And of course, in the past, if you're working for a company, you'll be able to give an opinion, but you're also trying to sell it. So what we thought was that what's badly needed and has always been badly needed is an independent voice of somebody who can say, look, this is what we think. This is why it's special. This is the context of why it's special. This is the comparison of why it's special. But not trying to sell it. So the things we're going to be putting on our website are not things that we're trying to sell. They're things that the owner wants to sell. So they might be things we've discovered in the market. They might be, in most of the cases here, the ones that we put up there, they're things from private owners that we've rediscovered, most of them. So let's look at one of them. The one on the right, the Van Cleef & Arpels mystery setting. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows this great thing. This was made in Paris in 1935, and it's a perfect example, really, of this. It came from a collection that we sold in 1998, which we called the Bird of Paradise collection from the private estate. And recently we rediscovered it in a private collection, and the owner would sell it. So it's really a question of how much the interest there is. So what we've done is that you can scroll down a bit. We've described the jewel, and then we've given our personal evaluation of it, about why this one is so important. The context of the jewel, context of the time in which it was made, and comparisons. A very similar one sold 4 years ago for $342,000. This type of thing. So for buyers, it's very helpful to have comparisons that are, public auction is always a useful comparison rather than one sold. But also, some real detailed photos. You can see the signature, which is absolutely typical of Van Cleef's signature of that period. You can see the quality of the brooch. You can see the condition being hugely important in visibly set pieces. There's a little film that we've made. So it's really so that now. So how do we pick these things? Is the question.
Yes.
So every single one of them has to have something special about it, something that catches our eye. I mean, make no apologies for the fact that the choice of things that will appear on this particular section of our site in the future are going to be things that follow our personal taste. A lot of what we write about it is going to be factual. So it's going to be, where it was made, how it was made, who it was made for, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of it is going to be, look, this is something that we absolutely love. Something that we think is great. So we think that this is going to be interesting for people. We shall see. People can bring things to our attention. For whatever it is, somebody might have something very special. If we like it and we think it's exceptional, then we can put it on our site.
Well, one of the things I always say is that, the provenance of the person you are acquiring something from is more important than sometimes the provenance of the piece itself. And so, Daniela, is there something that you would like to add to what David said? Are there any, without giving away secrets, are there one or two things that you keep in mind when you're considering a piece of jewel?
Yes. Basically, I will just reinforce what David said. The item has to be the perfect example of that particular type of object, of that particular style, of that particular maker. It can be something very expensive, but also something relatively inexpensive, but at the same time, really perfect example of what it should be. So we're not saying, oh no, we don't deal with anything under $100,000. No, we will also look at things that are out on the market for say 10,000, but are absolutely minute masterpiece of that particular field.
Right.
I'm also hoping that we'll be able to feature exceptional gemstones as well, because as you know, my own personal love for gemstones is rather, how can I say, rather different from most people. I'm very interested from an Western astrological point of view, yes, but also from the Vedic tradition. But also, there's a little film I made, for example, about the sunrise ruby, which is the world record stone we sold back in 5 years ago or something. Because there's something, when you get to that level of importance and rarity of gemstones, the enthusiasm of somebody who appreciates it and loves it is very infectious. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to feature great emeralds, great sapphires. Well, we'll talk about it. So it's not just a Gouvelin certificate.
Yes.
Which says it's not, but actually also says that somebody whose opinion people might respect, maybe, that this really is, it's like an endorsement of some of this quality, and so because I underline we're not selling it, it's going to be, I think it could be interesting, at least for nothing else, for people. It will mean, look, this is something worth looking at.
I think I think the only way to describe an interest in gemstones is it's a little bit like an addiction. It kind of gets under your skin, and you dream about it, you think about it, you live and breathe that addiction, and you're basically living from one hit to the next. That's about it.
They get engraved in your consciousness. I remember, finally, I talked about India just very briefly. I remember 40 years ago, when was it? About the end of the 1970s. I just started out in June. I was staying with a friend of mine in Calcutta, and spent 6 weeks in India, my favorite country, and ended up in a bank vault somewhere. I'm not going to say where it was, doesn't matter, but very remote.
Okay.
Being shown, and I can see it now, the best ruby at that moment I'd ever seen, and today, still in my mind, it seems to be the best, and it by a beautiful lady, also stays in my mind. But the extraordinary thing was, it was the most. I can almost smell that stone still. Because they just become engraved in your memory in a way that nothing else does.
Yes.
And I think that's what's so important. So, and I tried to get a bit of that in this little film I made on the sunrise ruby. Have a look at it. So it's on the site. It's just that there's something that speaks to us from beyond the present. It's like something coming to us. It's like an ancestral memory of immense beauty and spiritual truth. Daniela at this point would tell me to shut up if I'm getting.
No, I'm loving this. I'm loving this so much. I look at colored gemstones and I'm like, these are mineral works of art. Right.
Absolutely.
You look at whether it's a Zambian emerald, you look at it and you're like, that's 500 million years old. It was created 500 million years ago. Like, come on, this is before dinosaurs. This is before Pangea, and here you are holding it in your hand.
I know.
And what a way, it's like a visceral sort of connection to the earth.
I totally agree with you. It's something, it's something that I believe that we all have these stones inside ourselves. There's this great Vedic tradition as well, that these stones are part of our consciousness and part of our soul. And for me, finding the great ruby has always been, because ruby is hugely important for me for all sorts of reasons. Finding the great ruby has been the great quest of my life. And so when the Sunrise Ruby was handed to me, I could sit there crossed by this lady, the best ruby I'd ever seen. And it was sort of like this,
Right.
it was like the ruby of my career that I'd been waiting 40 years to find.
And maybe it was waiting for you. So to make it famous, right? But
the funny thing, Richa, I don't need to own it.
Yeah.
I spent 6 months of my life with it. It was a huge privilege, and that stone will go on through. It was just wonderful to have had this conjunction of my life and the life of this ruby, which has a consciousness, as you know. It was just a wonderful experience. It was almost worth the entire 44 years of my career to have that fun experience.
Well, I still need to evolve to your higher spiritual level, because when I see things, I'm like, I want to get it. I need to get it. But Daniela, moving to you now, what is your view on marked versus unmarked jewelry? Do you have a view on it?
I think I do have a view, definitely. And I think that jewelry does not need a mark to be beautiful, to be collectible, to be precious. And on very many occasions in my career and in David's career, we have come across absolutely fantastic jewels, absolutely gems. What do you say? I want a name. I want to find a poinçon. I want to find a signature. And we may spend, hours, if not days, looking for these little hints to put, a big name to a beautiful piece of jewelry. And on very many occasions, this has not happened. So
right.
we do have a fantastic amount of beautiful jewels, very well made without a signature. I mean, I can just remember one particular example. There is a very famous bracelet designed by La Cloche that we happen to handle, that happened to be on the cover of the book on La Cloche that has been published recently.
Right.
And I remember of seeing almost exactly the same bracelet the other side of the world. And we had not sold, we hadn't seen on the public market that La Cloche particular jewels. But when I saw that item in that faraway part of the world, I said, this must be La Cloche. This must be La Cloche. It is very much in the sort of style, design, and but there was no signature. And funnily enough, when the book came out, I saw in the page of designs of La Cloche jewels with flowers and all that, what I think is the design for that very bracelet that was not signed. It is really very much a it started in the late 60s, especially 70s, and then boomed in the 80s. The obsession with the signature, with the brand, with the logo, and this is true not only of jewelry but fashion, handbags.
Yes.
Whatever you want to see the mark before the item itself.
It's almost like it's an advent of marketing, because people, and I say this as well, don't buy the certificate, buy the stone. When it comes to gemstones as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the same with jewels. Buy the jewel, not signature, because with all respect for the big names, there are jewels made by the big French or Italian or American jeweler that are nice, good, but they are not special. Well, there are some very special items on the market out there without a signature. So start from good quality, good design, style, and then if you have the signature, that is an extra bonus.
Yes, and which is where people like you and David come in handy to help figure and navigate through the plethora of information that's out there. David, you wanted to say something, and I wanted to quickly ask you, our last question for this interview was, what's next? So now the launch has happened. What's next for both of you?
We were discussing recently what the next thing is. I mean, basically, both of us are quite keen to travel soon.
Yes.
How we can. I mean, on the list, obviously, is India,
Yes.
Middle East, and the Far East, China, Asia. Right. And it'll be interesting to see how our own, see whether our own enthusiasm and passion for jewelry is communicated through the website, because we're very keen to go out there and meet as many people who share the same passion. So I think the next few months are going to be listening to the feedback about the site, seeing if there's a theme that we should be following, see how this thing about this idea about the collecting and our personal views about particular jewels, see whether that takes off. Mm-hmm. We're going to be proposing several courses online. Daniela's already proposed one for the autumn. What date is it, Daniela? The Art Deco.
I think in October, and then repeating in November, and it will be on Art Deco. That I think it is a flavor that sort of suits every taste. So it's chocolate ice cream of the lectures. I'm sure that everybody likes Art Deco.
Right.
The tours probably will start next year. Maybe the earliest ones are going to be Paris and London, both of which are more accessible for us. Then after that, clearly Jaipur, which is a personal favourite of mine and so many people. Because there's so much that one can do there, so the hands-on and so forth. So that'd be very exciting. It's just this is really our time now, and so we want to sort of, as I said, I just like to communicate this passion about gemstones and talk about it in many ways, because I think gemstones speak to us, as we were talking earlier, in so many ways. Not just, but I remember going through exhibitions of sales, over the years, and I would take a client through, and they would be drawn to one particular stone, let's say. It always interested me to find out the reason astrologically why that stone had appealed to them rather than any others, because I think that's the type of thing that I think is interesting, is this mystical value of gemstones.
Well, in India, it's a different branch of study, gemology. From an astrological point of view. There's a real amalgamation of both those fields. And my little theory on it is because the minerals inside the stone we also have minerals inside our bodies. So sometimes we gravitate towards a certain chemical composition versus others because of the way we are made. And stones are the same as us, because none is alike. Each one is unique and distinctive. But thank you so much, both of you, for your time today. I feel very sad closing this interview, because I feel like we could keep talking for hours and it still wouldn't be enough. And
thank you very much for allowing us to sort of go on so long about something about which we're very passionate, as you know. And it was very kind of you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Daniela.
And we hope to inspire a lot of people to come to Jewel and love jewels the way the three of us seem to love Jewel. We hope that this website will be the vehicle for that.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think the first thing I'm going to do is go and sign up for your course in autumn and for your trip. That's going to happen next year in Paris. But it sounds like music to an addict like me. But thank you both.
Thank you, Richa.
And stay safe and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Richa. Bye.